Who knows what Boxwood Blight is? Has anybody heard of Boxwood Blight? Does anybody have nightmares about Boxwood Blight?
I will when I get you.
All right. So what in the heck is Boxwood Blight then? Maybe I should have reworded my title. All right. Boxwood Blight is a fungal pathogen that affects boxwood. It's fatal. It is not curable, and it spreads like wildfire. Okay? The Cylindrocladium fungus has very sticky spores. And so when it starts spreading, you're spreading it, birds are spreading it, deer are spreading it. NC State, one of my colleagues at NC State is actually doing a large study on deer and their ability to carry the spores from nursery to nursery, because that's where a lot of the problem is occurring, they think. All right, so Boxwood Blight, really quick spreading like wildfire. Within a few months, we go from perfectly healthy looking plant to dead. All right, especially during rainy seasons like this season. Boxwood Blight, though, is not in Kentucky yet. And I say yet. That should be all caps. All right, it's not here yet. It was reported in Ohio last summer. All right, it was a shipment that came in, so they think it was eradicated unless it spread before then. All right, so we're assuming that it's eradicated. It hadn't shown up again, so it's been over a year. All right, but it is well established. Boxwood Blight is well established in the eastern U.S. Well established. All right, Boxwood Blight spreads primarily through nursery stock. We are moving it from nursery to nursery, from nursery to landscape, from state to state. All right. Again, it's not curable. When we see Boxwood Blight, we're going to discard. So you've got to be alert. If you think you have Boxwood Blight, we have to take action before it establishes itself in the state of Kentucky, okay? So if anybody suspects Boxwood Blight, I'm going to go through some symptoms. If anybody suspects Boxwood Blight, we want you to talk to your county agents immediately, all right? And we'll call the proper channels. So we're trying to stop Boxwood Blight. Boxwood Blight primarily defoliates. That's what you're going to see. All right, so where is Boxwood Blight? It's at our back door. Virginia, North Carolina, it's well established there, very well established. And a lot of our woody nursery stock comes from that area. All right, I said Ohio, but we think it's been eradicated. Okay, but some of our nursery growers, Virginia, North Carolina, a lot of our boxwood are grown in North Carolina.
Is that host specific?
No. It is host specific. Pachysandra has been shown to be infected, but that was done in a lab. All right, so it's pretty host specific, boxwood. All right, early symptoms of Boxwood Blight are going to start as leaf spots. Unless you are a really diligent nursery grower, you're probably not going to see this stage. It happens that fast. So if you suspect, and you're going to look, when that shipment comes in, I talked about sanitation, I talked about exclusion. When that shipment comes in and you run your hand through that canopy of that shipment of plants, this would be rejected before it even came out of the trailer. All right? Spreads very rapidly, so you're probably not going to notice this unless you really look. All right? Also stem lesions, and I showed a similar picture to this earlier. These purple stem lesions are going to start to appear. You should be able to see those. I visited a research station that we saw it. You should be able to see them if you're looking, if you're opening that canopy. All right? If you're paying attention. But what do you see? You're going to see defoliation. All right? You're going to see it when this happens. And it seems to happen overnight. It can happen in a week. It can happen in 3 weeks. So it's really quick. All right? Boxwood Blight, though, is not bronzing. It's not the volutella. If the leaves are intact and brown or bronzy and blighted, it will not be Boxwood Blight. Boxwood Blight is defoliation. All right, so cultural practices. I talked about sanitation earlier. All right, if Boxwood Blight does come into your nursery, what is the first thing you're going to do? You're going to discard it, of course. So that's roguing. You're going to get it out of there. Then you're going to sweep, and you're going to rake, and you're going to burn. You're going to get rid of it. All right, any fallen leaves, any of that debris, that is where the fungus is going to sporulate, because it's a leaf spotting disease. So every fallen leaf, every spot will be producing possibly thousands of spores, each that can infect a healthy plant or plant part. All right, you're going to clean your tools, you're going to clean your pots, you're going to clean everything with some commercial sanitizer or bleach. All right, if you have a nursery area, you're going to clean that cloth. You're going to probably discard. All right, spores are very sticky. I told you that earlier. They stick to deer, they stick to birds, they stick to our jeans, they stick to our shoes. They stick to everything like glue. All right, you're not going to compost any diseased plant parts, no matter what. Okay, they don't just make those sticky spores. There are also some overwintering spores that can survive hot temperatures. And unless your compost pile is getting over 165 degrees Fahrenheit, which how many of us really do not compost anything with boxwood blight. All right, what about the rest of our cultural practices we talked about? If you think you have or had boxwood blight, okay, if it establishes itself, yes, you're discarding the infected plants, but what about the rest? Okay, all the rest of your boxwood are at risk at this point. So what do? You've got to prevent those plants from being infected. All right, so you're going to increase air circulation by spacing plants, by pruning plants, because the more quickly plant leaves dry, the less susceptible those plant leaves are to infection. All right, so that's what we mean when we say air circulation. We're going to lower humidity. A lot of times that means we can canopy up large trees. All right, greenhouses, we can open up sides, we can turn on fans. We can use drip irrigation instead of overhead. Again, drying those leaves as quickly as possible so that plant is not as susceptible. All right, remember that spores move around in debris in our clothing and shoes and wind, so we're cleaning up. All right, so these are preventative measures if we have boxwood blight in the area. You can do this with anything, actually. All right. So what about fungicides? There are a lot of fungicides registered for prevention of boxwood blight. But let me tell you what happens in boxwood blight country. All right, I'm not naming any names or any states, but I know that some of these boxwood growers who have had boxwood blight have eradicated that boxwood, those plants. They've destroyed those plants that were infected. All of their other plants being susceptible. They started spraying them with these fungicides. These fungicides are not curative, they're suppressive. So there are possible infected boxwood that can be coming in to our state and others who have been sprayed with 14 to 21 day active fungicides. And then what happens? When they get to you, you're not going to continue spraying, and some of the symptoms can appear later. So my advice to you, because so many suppressive fungicides are being used for boxwood blight, especially these big boxwood nurseries who are going to lose millions of dollars if they don't spray, you may have infected plants coming in and you don't even know it because there are no symptoms. So my advice for anyone, especially nursery growers who are bringing boxwood in from any of the states that have been tagged as boxwood blight areas, have a holding area, okay? Hold them there for 21 days and watch symptom development. Because what you do not want to happen are these infected boxwood installed into a landscape and symptoms develop later. All right, absolutely critical. So I don't know how many of you have that large of businesses. Sometimes small businesses will get a plant from a nursery who actually got it from someone else. So sometimes it's a little bit harder to track the origin of some of these plants, especially if we just need one. Or those of us who usually deal with smaller landscapes and need just one big one. And sometimes we track those down and they're going through channels that we don't know. So if you suspect a plant is coming in from any of those areas, you really need to hold that plant. Hold it away from other boxwood so that and check it. And if you start seeing symptoms, call us. Call somebody. Call your agent. Call me. Call somebody. And we will be out there and we're going to test it and we're going to help you eradicate it. Okay? Anonymously. Where you're not going to be in the newspaper. We promise. All right? All righty. Any questions on boxwood blight? It's not here, so not many people ever have questions.
Well, I have one.
Sure.
Probably the most planted boxwood in this area is green velvet. They don't show green velvet. They show its sister seedling, Green Mountain, which came out of the nursery in Canada. That
is a study, the back of your handout, that is a study from NC State. And I'm not sure. I will have to ask Kelly. But even those that are resistant, we call it resistant tolerant to boxwood blight, they will still get a few spots. Much fewer, so you're not going to see total devastation, but you will see enough to become that green bridge. So I'm not sure about cultivars, which one she chose and why. I'm not real sure, but I can ask. If you want to get back, I'll get back with you. I'll take your name and email.
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, he was questioning the cultivars on the back of the handout. He was questioning the cultivars here and why these were chosen and what green velvet is not on the list. So I told him I didn't know. This was done at NC State, where boxwood blight is quite well established in North Carolina. But I can find out.
So you don't know anything about different cultivars as being less susceptible, or whether they're all the same?
These are the ones on the back of the handout. These are the ones that were tested. But he asked about one that is not on the list. And I told him I would find out.
For these or any other disease plants that need to be discarded, what is the best method to discard?
That's a big question, okay? It depends on your resources, okay? You don't really want them in a dumpster because then they just go out to a lot, but what choices do we have? Burn and bury. Ideally, burn and bury. If you have a nursery, you would probably want to have something on site. If you have a landscape business, well, kind of depends, because I had that site in my yard. So I did a lot of it, and guess what? I didn't burn every day, okay? It's stockpiled there, and I'm sure lots of diseased plants were in that pile, and I just was too tired to care. But honestly, that's a decision that has to be made individually. If you want to talk to somebody about it, we can very happily go, especially if you have an outbreak of something. If you have a constant outbreak of something, we do need to discuss it seriously. But it's really impossible to put these things in the garbage can unless you have a dumpster. But then the dumpster is going onto a site. Okay, we talk about thousand cankers disease. Okay, how is that moving? That's moving in wood chips. As these diseased trees are being cut down, they're being chipped and pulped and carried off site onto another site, and that's how it is spreading. So just kind of depending on what diseases it is and how it spreads. But like boxwood blight, we would probably help you discard. And that's my guess. But we would do everything we can to help you with that. Typically a diseased plant, a lot of these things are common. We just, once they build up to significant numbers, that's when you start seeing real problems. A lot of those things can be put in a dumpster, just depending how invasive it is. Any other questions?
This video has been part of the University of Kentucky Nursery Crops web series. For more information on the topics discussed, please contact your county extension office.